Welcome to the Inn of Whispers, my friend. My name is Gabriel. Join me as I share a story I heard on my travels. This story is called
The Debt. My freshman dorm was co-ed. Boys and girls divided into parallel halls on each floor, split by a bank of elevators in the middle. On my floor, the elevators were rumored to be haunted by a student who had struggled with depression and died in his room about 15 years earlier. The circumstances were always unclear, but part of the story was that he left behind a letter. A letter about how girls wouldn't talk to him. I'd heard about it when I first moved in, and then, like most things, forgot all about it. Later that first semester, I was struggling a bit in an advanced economics class. I sat next to a very sweet, shy guy, we'll call him K, who didn't talk much, but always had great answers in class. One day after class, K mentioned that he lived on my floor, and had seen me around, and would be happy to help me study. I agreed right away, and we planned to meet in the library. K was an excellent teacher. He explained things in a way that our professor never could, and it was like retaking the whole class in 2 hours. I was so grateful, and I told him I owed him one. His shyness vanished out of nowhere, and he asked me out then and there. I didn't find K that physically attractive, but his smarts and his sweetness intrigued me, so I said yes. We made plans to go out that Friday. While I was getting ready, Kay sent me a message asking me to meet him in his room. He said it was just off the elevators. When I walked in, he'd set up pizza and beers and a movie. The plan had been to go get Chinese food down the street, but I was flexible. So I settled onto his futon. His room was very bare bones, with nothing on the walls and no color, and I started to feel really uncomfortable. A strange vertigo-like sensation crept over me. The second bed was stripped bare, and Kay told me his roommate had moved out because the room creeped him out, so he'd been living alone. If you haven't guessed yet, this was apparently the same room where that freshman had died years before. Kay told me he'd done a bunch of research on the guy. He said the student had all these issues with women, a record of stalking and harassment, and some drug problems, but also that he'd loved horror movies. Kay said the boy had an old webpage somewhere, listing his favorite ones, and that he, Kay, had been trying to watch all of them. He told me the plan was to watch another one tonight. By that point, I was overwhelmed with an intense, cold dread. I told him I didn't like horror movies, and asked if we could watch something else instead. "Shh, he is listening," said Kay, motioning vaguely around the room. He turned the movie on and put his arm around my shoulders. I knew I needed to get out of there. I told him I really couldn't stand scary movies, and maybe we could do this another time. As I was turning his door handle to leave, he said, "Okay, but remember, you owe me." That became a theme for weeks. I aced that exam, and when I messaged him to say thank you again, he replied, "You owe me." He wrote, "You owe me" on my roommate's dry erase board when we left the door unlocked one day. He wrote it again on one of the fogged up bathroom mirrors while I was in the shower. He had clearly learned a lot from the horror movies he was watching. I was so freaked out, and I went to my RA. They told Kay to leave me alone and stay out of the women's bathroom. He did, but he also started leaving his dorm door open all the time. So if I ever used the elevators, he'd be there, sitting in the dark and staring at me. Then he was just gone one day. His room door was open, and everything was cleared out. Even the beds and desks were gone. The doorknob was missing from the door. Despite my experience gone sour, I remember feeling sad about it because he was so smart. He really should have been excelling in college. He had started out sweet and helpful, a good classmate, and someone I thought for a moment could be a friend. But as I got to know more guys from his side of the hallway, they started sharing stories. They said Kay had gone from really nice and a little withdrawn to dark and mean, completely obsessed with the ghost of the guy who died in his room. He claimed the guy was talking to him at night. They said his former roommate had actually moved out because he didn't feel safe in there. Security recovered several knives and other weapons under his bed. My Ara finally told me, months later, that the school made him leave. He was removed after he was found, in one of the girls' bathroom stalls with a knife in his pocket. Ooh, guess he needed a sacrifice, joked the male RA. I didn't find it funny at all, especially because they told me I needed to call the police if I saw him on campus, and especially because they didn't let anyone else move into that room. Not that year. Not the years after. The room became a legend itself, and the door always stayed open. People would claim to see dark figures in it late at night, or hear noises, faint noises, coming from inside. I never dared to look in it again, always keeping my back to it, whenever I waited by the elevators. Cut to years later. I'm in grad school, and engaged to be married. A few months before my wedding, my fiancé and I both get a friend request from a random guy that neither of us knew. He had no profile picture, but he had gone to our college. I did a search for the name, and it led me to articles about the suicide in our dorm from the 90s. Someone was using that kid's name. Yep, you guessed it. I got a message request later that night. It said, "Oh, me." Maybe Kay was possessed by the ghost. Or maybe it was just a coincidence. Or maybe it really didn't matter.
I hope you enjoyed this story, friend. Please share your thoughts below. Like and subscribe for more stories at Whisper Inn. And if you have a chilling story you'd like to share, contact the innkeeper to have it whispered. But until then, safe travels, my friend.